welcome to Great Careers and our conversation today about consulting and freelancing. Should you go on your own? And I think this is going to be a nice discussion. We have some questions already laid out here. I will start by asking Rashmi to introduce herself, my co-speaker, and then I'll say a little bit, and then we'll jump right in. So Rashmi, tell everybody about yourself, what you do. I think it's really cool, so I'll try not to chime in too much.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here today. I'm really excited. I am a nonprofit consultant, and I've been in the nonprofit space for over 20 years now, consulting primarily on operations, business development, and strategy. While I was consulting, I also realized a big gap between finding projects and connecting consultants to projects for nonprofits. So I'm also the founder of CGT Connects, creating good things. So really creating good things for the nonprofit community, where nonprofit organizations can post projects for free, RFPs for free, and consultants can get access to those projects. It's a national organization. We have close to 100 consultants right now, and we've posted, in the last couple of years, we've posted over 1,200 projects to connect consultants, and they vary. They are from strategic planning, fundraising, auditing, videography, translation, executive search. They just vary from different types of projects across the country. So I'm here and I'm excited.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much. And as many of you know, I'm Matthew Hugg. My business is Nonprofit.Courses. It's an education and training website for people in the nonprofit sector. And like you'll find out, just like Rashmi, I didn't start out that way. We both came to our work through our past work, but found something that really came together, as I like to think of it. The Rubik's Cube kind of finally started looking like it should. So let's get started. So here we go. So our first question, and I'll ask Rashmi this, is, so what prompted you to start your own business? And
I am on mute. Sorry about that. I think this is a very interesting question because there are so many things that prompt you to start your own business, besides sometimes being bored of what you're doing and the challenge and the desire to do something different. I was fortunate that my dad was a businessman as well. So I did see him doing his own business growing up. And I worked for almost 12 years with full-time employment when I realized that I really needed to step out and do something on my own, get the opportunity to be my own boss, but more importantly, to learn and do different things for different clients, which was exciting because now, instead of working for one organization, I've worked for more than 30 different organizations, and I've seen how they operate and how they function, and it's just enriched my experience of being on my own.
So, you know, one of the things actually you brought up there I find interesting, and I will tell people in their own business, is that, you know, one person can't fire you. You know, you had 30 different clients, right? So that makes a big difference.
What about you, Matt? What prompted you to start your own business?
Well, you know, like you, it's interesting. And I've read that we are in this common among people who have their own business. My father also had his own business. And actually, I think I am like at least third generation, if not fourth, in their own business. And my son has his own. So it wasn't something that was weird to do. That sounds kind of odd, but for me, like you, I grew up watching. I mean, we didn't have a dining room table. That was where my father did all his work. In the holidays, the big effort wasn't to get the house ready so much as to get all my dad's stuff off the dining room table. And Uh, and I, like you, I worked in the family business for a bit, but then I had my own career. I went out and did my thing. My father didn't necessarily want me to be in the business with him. He wanted me to do my own thing, and that was fine. But eventually it was like, yeah, I need to do something myself. And in my case, I was, as I say, to people who have fundraising jobs, it's like being a coach in a professional sports team. After a bit, they just say, okay, you're done. And I had that happen a couple of times, and I thought, I'm tired of that. I think I can do my own thing. I have a good experience to offer others. But it took a while to figure out exactly what fit, how that, like I said earlier, that Rubik's Cube kind of came together. And once that happened, I really felt good about things to move forward. So, yeah, I mean, did we? Yeah, there we are. Did we come from a family-owned business? Yeah. But Rashmi, tell me, what if you didn't come from a family business? How do you think the dynamics would have been different? I mean, you have, are other people in your family in their own businesses? How's that work?
No, actually, I'm the only one. And you're right. I think if you don't have somebody who's already doing business, it's a little different because you don't know what you don't know. Again, you don't know what you don't know even when you have the background of a family business. Yeah. But you at least have seen the path, how it goes, that there are going to be ups and there are going to be downs, and also that you're sometimes going to be working a lot, and then you have to create your discipline to not work 24 hours because it's your business. I think when you don't have your business, it takes, from my friends, I see some of my colleagues and peers, it takes them a little bit of an adjustment to understand that it is fine. You will get through it. You just have to go through the motions because everybody's so used to their paycheck. It becomes important to just understand that you have to give your business some time before you can say that it's not working. And typically, in my opinion, it takes a good 2 to 3 years before you can decide whether you should be in it or not in it, but should not give up before that.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I guess of the 4 siblings, 2 of us are arguably in our own business. I am. My brother is an attorney with a bigger law firm, but basically, you find your own clients, you do all those business things, except that you have some infrastructure around you to support that. But it's like working as an independent contractor in some ways. My other 2 siblings didn't want to have anything to do with being in a business on their own. They had seen I guess the downside of it, because it's not an easy thing to be in business for oneself, and that just wasn't what they wanted to do. So yeah, it's if you don't come from this, I mean, one of the things that became apparent to me is that you really have to like what you're doing. If you don't like what you're doing, you're going to be miserable doing it. Yeah. And you're not going to stick to it because it's going to take a lot of stuff to stick to it, and liking it is going to be a major help. I'm not sure my father honestly approached it that way. I think in one of his businesses, he had a couple. I think in one of them he did. The other one was kind of because he had to. I think he really liked the people he worked with. I don't know that he actually liked the thing. So, lessons learned.
Yeah.
So, Rashmi, what determined the kind of business you started? Why did you get into initially nonprofit consulting and then what you're doing now?
My background had been in nonprofit. I knew the nonprofit space. So I think, and I got a project pretty much when I got out of full-time, I had a project immediately in the nonprofit space, again, doing what I was doing.
Mhm.
But I wasn't sure of what type of consulting I was going to do. I was going to be in the nonprofit space, but I had experience with business development. I just didn't know what area I was going to be specializing and what I would tell people what I do, because I'm a generalist. I'm not necessarily a specialist in a
Mhm.
specific area. So that was a little bit of a struggle for me to understand. And when I would talk to people and network with people, they would keep asking me, so what is it that you do? So it was initially that was a little confusing for me and for the people I connected with. But I think it took a lot of conversations with people for me to eventually figure out what I do. So I guess my point is that don't get into it thinking you're going to do something, and it will evolve.
Yeah. I
Changes, it evolves, and the clients actually teach you and help you get there.
Yeah, as I like to say, you have to follow your market.
Correct.
And I had somebody that a number of folks on this call might know who tell me that you don't you don't always realize what you're personally good at. He said that other people recognize that in you, but you think it's something natural that everybody can do. And so getting that feedback from, like you said, from clients, from other people is really helpful. I mean, I ended up doing really functionally two things: writing and teaching, and now bringing other people's teaching out to other folks. And it took me a while to kind of evolve down to that, because like you, I needed the feedback. I needed to understand what people were hiring me for or not, what I really liked doing, or what I was just doing because it felt like I should do it or I could do it.
Right.
For a little while, I was into doing executive search, and I did okay with it, and there's some money in that, but I didn't feel like that was something that really worked well for me in my personality and how I dealt with things. So I ended up not doing that and choosing another path. So it took a while to kind of refine exactly what it was I was good at. I found I knew an attorney early on in my business who was who said she started her practice as a a collection person for dental offices. Her law firm, she had been a hygienist before she became a lawyer, and knew the dental world, and realized that a lot of her the dentists she knew weren't good in collections, and that's how she started her business as a lawyer. And now she does small business stuff and divorces. So what are you going to say? So what was the big challenge? What was the big thing that was the obstacle to get you started?
I think it was me. I think I was my number one challenge, because
Okay.
I took the step. I knew I could do it, but I was just not letting myself go and enjoy the journey. I
Mm-hmm.
think I doubted myself at the beginning at every step, and I was getting options for full-time opportunities, and I kept thinking, maybe I should just keep going back, maybe. So I think it was literally just me, and getting over my own um, dilemmas, or just my own, I was just being my own devil. And once I was able to get over that, and I think I got over that, it took me a couple months after I got my first project. But then I didn't have a project for almost 6 months. It
Mm.
was really just understanding. And that 6 months was a good 6 months for self reflection. And it was also a time when I started thinking innovatively, and I created CGT Connects, which was creating good things. So I spent a lot of time connecting and meeting with people. So it was really an opportunity for me in disguise, because I met so many people through that, but it was really getting over my own issues about whether I would be a good consultant or not.
That's really, I mean, that kind of echoes some of the things that I faced in
Yeah.
self-confidence. I mean, really having the self-confidence And it's interesting, not so much to do the thing I liked to do, whatever that, the right. I mean, I knew I could do these things, but it was the self-confidence of getting out and talking to other people and telling them that, yeah, this is what I do. I can do this for you and you will get great results, and then charging appropriately for that.
Right.
Lynn, before the call here, mentioned finding somebody to do some work who was, in my mind, and I think she agrees, charging much less than she should. And I think that a lot of that has just to do with self-confidence and it not believing that what you are. Yeah, logically, yes, you believe that, but being able to say it and getting out there. Yeah, that makes a big difference. Yeah, it's interesting that neither of our answers was money.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
Yeah, a lot of people will say, oh, if they look at it from the outside, you would think, oh, the money is the challenge. And not so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the money would have been a challenge, and I think I was fortunate enough to have had enough savings, but I can see it being a challenge for some consultants. But again, if you're taking that step, fully knowing that it's going to be a struggle for at least a couple of months.
Yeah.
Give yourself and allow yourself that time. So it may be a little bit of a lifestyle adjustment for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it will work. I mean, I've seen it work for most of my peers. And for what it just is that it's a full-time job to find projects till you get a project. So you have to believe in that, and you have to trust in that, and you have to be consistent.
Well, and you bring up a good point, is it's the consultant's conundrum, right? When you're doing a project, you're not looking for a project. And when you're looking for one, you're not bringing in the income from anything you're doing. So it can get complicated. All right. Well, so that brings us here. How do you find clients? What are you thinking?
And I know Matthew and I talked about this a lot. So in the beginning, finding clients was really, really hard for me. I will tell you that because when I was employed, my contacts were all national and I didn't have any local clients, and I'm based out of the Chicago area. I didn't know anybody locally. And I had a client, which was my first client, but again, that client was out of state. So it was definitely hard. The first 15 months, I literally cold called people via LinkedIn. I connected with local nonprofit organization leaders and consultants and foundation leaders, and I literally connected with them on LinkedIn. And I asked them if they would be willing to meet me for coffee or lunch or tea or dinner and breakfast. And I had about 5 to 6 networking meetings with brand new people that I never knew for the first 6 months for sure.
Wow. And probably gained 20 pounds, right?
I did gain 20 pounds, and I lost a lot of money in the trips to Chicago and the food. But I will tell you, people were great. We are blessed in the nonprofit community to have great leaders and great people that they were really open in meeting with me and learning about me and helping me think what I need to be and where I need to be and connecting me with other people. So it was that first, second, third referral, which actually got me projects to keep going. And then once, fortunately, I had that, then things kept, like I built my pipeline and I built my capacity. But I will tell you, for me, it was definitely harder.
Yeah.
Then, of course, I started CGT Connects, which also helped me a lot looking at RFPs and finding projects. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Well, like you, I think it had a lot to do with networking and having people just know that I'm out doing what I am doing. Right. And having them be able to tell other people, hey, I know somebody who, and yet also it has had a lot to do with refining exactly what I was doing. And what I mean is that, I talk about this in other forums and other places, is that if you tell people, well, I'm a consultant, or, I'm looking for a job or something, they're going to send you everything or anything, or they just don't have a grasp of it. But if what I found is if I was really sharp about, this is what I do, and told them how they might be helpful, as assuming that they liked what I was doing and thought this was helpful, right? And how they could be helpful. I did what we do in the nonprofit sector. I made a volunteer out of them. And then they took that message out. And yeah, it's a numbers game. Like you said, I think I put on some weight over this time too, certainly in the earliest years. Where I would go have coffee and meet and drive and all that stuff, right? And start connecting with a lot of people who had other connections, and it pays off over time. It's not something that happens immediately.
But it's also important to remember those connections and to meet with them regularly. So what I do is I have 3-month calendar where I check in. And of course, COVID was a little hard, but I still checked in. And so every 3 months, at least, the few people that we hit it off and we created that relationship, even though I didn't get a project from them, we created great relationships. And it helps because you're learning more about the community. You're exchanging your information about each other, about what the work you're doing, and you learn a lot more. So it's really important to keep that going. It's hard. Well, it's important to keep it going.
No, exactly. And actually, one of the things I find is that, and this happened to me in my regular Paycheck work too, because I was a fundraiser and I would meet similar people in different companies in the same industry, right? And it helps become a connector, so that when you find out something from one person you met, and then they could help that other person you met, to put them together. Now you're becoming a resource for them, and it gives them a motivation to stay connected to you. So it really is helpful. So how do you bill for your services? This is a question I get a lot from people.
I think all of these. So I do bill depending on the type of project. I am a retainer on a current project. I have done fixed price, like it depends on the client, on the project. And I also am on the hourly basis for some projects. So it really just varies. You have to have an idea of your hourly rate that you're going to charge, and then kind of assess what's going to work the best for that client and that particular project.
Yeah.
So exactly. I think I do all of these. What about you?
Well, I tend to go by the job. Okay. I just for some personal reasons, honestly, I just, it's not even I can't stand keeping track of time. I'm not good at it. I just know that about myself. I'm not, I forgot to turn on the clock. When did I start writing this letter, for them, right? And then I would finish, and then I'd walk away, and oh darn, I forgot to hit the clock again, when I was finished. So I really try to do by the job because it makes my life easier. I also find that my clients, the folks I tend to work with, like that definition of, okay, it's going to cost this much. And so my learning, they don't feel like they're getting charged for my learning time. They don't feel, if it's going to take longer than we expected, it's going to blow their budget away. I've been doing what I've been doing long enough now that I have a sense of how long it takes me to do things anyhow. So I don't worry so much about stuff. So I tend to go by the job. If somebody really wants me to go by a time period, I'll do it. But that's just not, like I said, for me, it works the other way.
Yeah. No, I'm not necessarily a big fan of tracking my time either, but sometimes I think it depends on the type of client and the work. If they are doing work for a federal contract, it just depends that they require those things. So I understand from the client what they need, and my preference is by the job for sure. or just being on a retainer for a
Yeah.
certain amount of hours a
Well,
month.
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. And the best clients will work with you that way and
Right.
say, you're going to put in this kind of time over, over whatever the contract is.
Right.
So, you got to be an extrovert, right? You got to be out there all the time.
So I will tell you this, and I think I'm an extrovert. It was really, really hard to get into it.
Hmm.
And it's because it's hard work to constantly be networking and connecting and meeting and putting yourself out there, even though I'm an extrovert. And I will tell you this, a very good colleague of mine who is a consultant, she is an introvert. I never thought, like, we've known each other for a very long time. So I never thought she would continue being a consultant. And she has actually, she's done amazing. She now has a business with, she's hired 10 people.
Wow.
She's doing great and she is leading her organization. And I feel she has been able to accomplish a lot more in terms of growing her business than even what I have been able to. And for sure, she is an introvert.
Hmm.
I think it's really just it's about you. You need to do what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this might surprise some folks here, but I guess I feel like I get my energy not from connecting out to a lot of people, although I enjoy it, especially the people I talk to somewhat regularly, but I don't mind working by myself in my office at my house. I have introvert tendencies for sure. That's where I can get a lot done. And yet, you learn to do other things as you need to do. And that's really important to keep in mind. And also, I think like your friend, maybe the advantage is that she sees that she may not have certain skills and employs people to do that where she doesn't feel like she can do everything.
Yeah, but she's definitely out there promoting. I think she takes her time to decompress, but she
Yeah,
does what's needed to be done.
yeah, exactly. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
To be able to know yourself. And that's an important part of this entrepreneurial journey, is to know yourself and leverage your own talents and skills, and then know what to put out to other people. So it makes a big difference. How do you let people know that you're in business?
The only reason I'm laughing is because it took me a while to let people know that I was in business, because I wasn't sure whether I was in business or not. And I wasn't
Mm,
sure what I was doing in the beginning. I took the step, but I was still hesitant. You just do it. You keep telling people you're in business. And I think what helped me was my husband. When people would ask, "What are you doing?" and my husband like, about me, he was like, "Oh, she has her own consulting business." And I kept looking at him and like, "What are you talking about?" But I think it's just that you literally just have to feel good about it, feel confident about it, and let people know through social media, through word of mouth, through emails. Then once I was ready, I went through my contact list and I started emailing people, my old colleagues, my new colleagues, my friends, and telling them, or picking up the phone and talking even.
mm,
Literally telling people that I am consulting, this is what I'm thinking, and great way to network and stay in touch.
yeah, yeah.
What about you? How did you let people know?
Yeah, like you, at some point you kind of internalize and say, okay, I guess I'm doing this. I am a consultant, or I do have my own business, and kind of letting it rest in yourself that way, in myself. Now, like you, social media, emails, regular contacts. Now it's become kind of keeping top of mind, as opposed to establishing the fact that you are. But it starts with yourself. It
Right.
starts with letting yourself know that that's what you're doing, and that you're just not long-term unemployed. And I still get people, it's funny, in my neighborhood here, just locally, right? Because I don't have a business. And it's one of the issues that, Rashmi, I think you might face as well. You can say or not, but that a lot of folks think, well, business is a place,
Mhm.
right? And whether I live in a small town, and so we have a little main street, right? And so, oh, they're businesses, right? Or there's a factory up the way here, right? Well, that's a business. And they don't conceptualize that, you're a business. So some of my neighbors, until I told them, said, oh, well, you're retired, right? It's like, oh gosh, I wish sometimes, but no. Or they just don't have a grasp of, well, why is that guy at home? I see him walking around at lunchtime. What's going on? So sometimes you just have to actually just tell people that's what you're doing. Okay, so what made you stick into doing your business? Because like you said, like we've both said, you can, it's not easy.
No, it's not. And I think it was just my family for sure. They helped me think through it and let me know that this is exactly what I should be doing, my family and friends. And then I think it was just at some point, like I said, for the longest time, I had no projects after my first project, but was really just thinking through and networking and meeting people and learning about this space and creating CGT Connects gave me the ability to keep going and seeing eventually what happens. And I knew in my mind that I had to give it 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
That was the timing that I had in my mind. And I'd heard about that 2 to 3 years from so many people that it really did click.
Yeah. Well, I think, for me, it's like you said, having family support, my wife in this case, who has really stood up and said, yeah, this is okay. We're doing this. You're doing this. I think that's really important. I also find that getting a positive feedback loop from some people, who appreciate what you're doing is really helpful. That you've made a positive contribution to whatever they're doing, and they think that's a good thing. I will tell you, I've had a couple of people say, it'll never work. It's not good. Don't do it. Right. And it's like, and that tells me, no. maybe that's being foolish, but it's moved me along a couple more than once to say, yeah, no, this is something that the world needs, and I'm going to bring it out. So makes a big difference.
I think for me also, I joined a couple consulting groups.
Yeah.
And I was seeing other consultants, and they were much ahead and further along than I was. So really talking to them and understanding from them and being part of those groups helped me a lot too.
Yeah. No, you have a very strong group there in Chicago. I know there's one in Boston. Our Philadelphia group is merged into Great Careers. Being able to connect with people who are doing things, independent solopreneurs or small business people makes a difference. Let me ask you, while we're talking about that, do you connect with either Rotary or, Kiwanis or anything like that?
I have not.
Chamber of Commerce? No?
No, I have not. Yeah.
I find, at least in my business, that's not where it's not my tribe, right? Makes it a difference. So does your business look the same as when you started?
Not at all. Not at all. It's funny that you asked this for me, because I've still not developed my own website for my consulting. I have a website for CGT Connects, but because I keep thinking when I start writing what I want to put on it, it changes. And I literally should just get doing it. It's changed a lot. The core of the work probably is the same, but the clients have changed, my perspectives have changed, my services have changed. But at the same time, it's interesting. It's evolving. But I feel now I'm ready. I've been in it for 4 years. Now I'm ready to finally create my own website where I can actually say what I do and feel that that's what I do. What about you?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it evolved a lot based on the feedback I was getting.
Yeah.
Even Nonprofit.Courses didn't quite start as the same format. I was kicking around a membership model. I was looking at, I don't know, a lot of different things, and it took a little bit to come down to where I am, largely because of feedback I was getting from people and how they thought a site like I was thinking of could help them. And it takes a lot of listening. It takes hearing what, being open to what your clients and others are saying. And I can't say that I'm always great at that, but at least, you know, what do they say? If you do something right 51% of the time, maybe it'll work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. What's our next question here? Have you ever thought of giving up and just going to do the paycheck job?
So I did. I didn't do it because I wanted to give up, but a really good opportunity did come through with a client of mine, and but I came back to consulting. But I will tell you that to get a paycheck job, once you're out of the job routine, in my opinion, if you're a consultant, because you have so much more experience with different kinds of clients and different kinds of projects, getting back onto the paycheck job is not hard. It's actually easier because now you have a lot more perspective and a lot more to offer. And I have noticed that full-time opportunities actually prefer that, and they like that ability, that consulting skills that you bring in, because you have to have different kind of skills as a consultant. They actually appreciate that skill set.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you I did a long-term consulting assignment, which is effectively a paycheck job one summer. A friend of mine asked if I could be the alumni director for a small college nearby, because he was just taking over the whole program and needed somebody just to fill that slot for a bit. I will tell you that the job itself was great. I mean, I had a lot of flexibility and all that, right? What really got me was having to be there every day and not having the flexibility of going and doing other things, or I mean, I really felt that the work I was doing after a bit, I like, you get done at 3:30 of all the big stuff that's happening in the day. And I literally sat around a couple of days saying, okay, I mean, I guess I should be here till 5.
Yeah.
It just didn't fit well for me. But yeah, I think, if you have to say, is this, you've given your business a shot. Have you done your best with that? Do you see something that's a future here? And really take a step back and take care of yourself, as opposed to what other people are going to think. I think that's another part too.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. Let's see here. So what have you done for business infrastructure, accounting, insurance, computers, other things? How do you work with that?
So I do have a tax consultant who's a really good, who helps him with accounting.
Yep.
I literally just have one laptop that I need. I don't need more than that. And I am looking into insurance. I have not done that. And a good colleague of mine told me to look into it. So I haven't done that yet.
Sure.
But I'm looking into it. But really just having a good bank account and a good manager. So you need to have a good relationship with the bank manager. That helps. Having a good tax consultant helps. And of course, you want to have Wi-Fi and the regular stuff that you need. But I don't think I need anything more than that.
Well, it's interesting. Now, accounting, yes, I like my accountant. I've actually had insurance for a bit, and it's weird. It's almost like it would be strange to meet my insurance person because we have never met personally. She's somewhat local. She started local, then moved out, but I've always been with her. We have nice conversations on the phone, but we've never actually seen each other. I do all my own computer work largely, although I do have kind of a go-to person if I get absolutely stuck. Early on in my business, I read a book, which I think is still valid. Maybe some of the technology has changed. A guy named Bruce Judson wrote, it's called Go It Alone.
Mm.
And he was all about extreme outsourcing. And back in, he wrote the book in 2002 or something, and that was kind of it wasn't as easy to do that. But he was all about building up an infrastructure around you so that you could focus on your thing. Rashmi, I think you and I have talked about Michael Gerber and his, E-Myth, the Entrepreneur Myth series, right? And the same kind of thing, to build up these automatic infrastructures that occur so you don't have to think about them, and that you can get to the core of what you want to do and work on the business instead of in the business. But it's really important to have these infrastructure pieces set up so that you're able to focus on what's important.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. So, family, what role has your family taken in your business?
I think, of course, being supportive of me and letting me do what I have to do, because there are times when I'm working on the weekends and evenings.
Yep.
So they've definitely helped me with that. And also liking all my social media posts. They are the first ones to go and like it. So that
Okay.
helps, because at least if nobody else likes it, somebody has liked it. But more importantly, just believing and telling me and being with me and working and making dinners on days that I can make it, or just riding along with me.
Yeah, I find the same in terms of somebody to reflect things off of and talk about bigger decisions or smaller things and all that. I think that's really been huge. Coming from a small business family, I was somebody who worked in my dad's store, and that was, it's funny, having that close interaction, that's a different thing when you have a child or a brother or a spouse working on a day-to-day business relationship. That can be challenging a lot. But I think in the end, it's about being a support there and having that kind of part of your infrastructure in what you're doing.
You're right.
Let's see. So how do you keep your skills updated?
First of all, by making sure you have clients and you have different clients so that your skills are updated. But I do tend to read a lot, but also I connect with other consultants a lot too. So I'm learning from them. Like I said, I do spend a time networking where I'm learning about what they are doing and how they do things. Besides, of course, reading and going through webinars, I feel it really helps talking to other consultants who are in the same space or not in the same space.
Yes.
I think we do that a lot.
That makes a big difference. I mean, for me, it's been, I've had a huge learning curve on website development because that's a lot of what I do. Like you said, webinars and going to conferences. I went to, if anybody wants to know, there's an ongoing series of WordPress conferences that roll nationally, different cities, and where you can go as somebody who knows nothing or somebody who really knows a lot and get a lot out of it. And I've met some, actually turns out I met one of my neighbors there. We didn't know about each other's work or anything, and we've become pretty good friends since then. That's because we ended up taking the train home together from the same conference. But
you make a lot of good friends.
Yeah, you really do, and that's a good way of keeping your skills updated, because when you, like we talked about, network before, then you have the phone a friend opportunity to call somebody if you need an update on something, or, oh, I never heard of this, can you tell me about it, that kind of thing. Right. So let's see, it can be isolating. How do you connect with folks? I mean, it's not only physically isolating. I mean, you're sitting where you are, I'm sitting where I am. Everybody is kind of, especially now, but also emotionally isolating, because you're you're the boss,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, you're right. So I will tell you, you and I would not have met if you and I had not made the effort to connect. And I'm so glad that we did. And now we are here together. And we only met a couple months ago. So
Mhm.
I think it's really picking yourself up and making that effort to connect and talk to more people. It's important because I learned about nonprofit courses and, of course, also great careers and you about CGT. So as we learn and we grow, you just keep staying. It's like family, right? If you are not in touch with your family, then things you do get distant. So you really have to make an effort. So it's exactly like that, I feel. And also with your clients, previous, current, and past clients, try
Mhm.
to be in touch with them, assuming you've had good experiences with them. It's important.
Yeah, it's funny. This is something I learned from my father when he would he'd be the first person to say, "Oh, I don't have any friends," right? But then when you reminded him, well, how about that person in Australia you talked to a lot? Well, yeah, he was great. I loved it. He was a really, and how about that person in Chicago or that person in Maine, right? He had this infrastructure around him that he discounted, but was really important in his life because those were his social connections. I mean, he had a little storefront in a small little town, but he sold product internationally, actually, and it made a difference because the clients to him was his network.
Yeah.
They probably spent like 3 minutes talking about the product he was going to get to them, and then the next half hour talking about their families or something.
Hmm.
and, and it wasn't because he was trying to sell them. It was because they genuinely had a concern for each other's lives, and it made a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it's like you, I know you have siblings and I know they are a physician, a couple of them, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just really understanding and relating and maintaining that. Even in a full-time job, it's not easy to be connected.
Mm.
I mean, I know so many people that don't make that effort. I think it's really up to you to make that effort regardless.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's there's a lot of commentary we can make socially about that in our world today, but it's clear that interpersonal connections are really huge for a lot of reasons. Not just business. So, formal or informal mentors, peer groups.
I do have, and I think they're really important. I have a formal mentor actually who's a past client of mine, and she has really helped me a lot. And she helps me in the professional space, but I have a very, very close friend who helps me in the personal space to keep going. So I do think you need that support. And again, you need that support, I feel, regardless whether you're in a full time opportunity or whether you're consulting. You just want to have somebody you can have an unbiased conversation with,
Yeah.
especially for your professional growth. I feel it's actually more important when you are in a paycheck job to have a mentor because I think it's harder to keep, for me at least, to keep going.
Yeah, I think that's true. Especially in a bigger company where having a mentor might be helpful in moving yourself up or getting different opportunities in that company. It makes a big difference. But there are really good opportunities to have mentors in the business space. I think the biggest challenge I find is having somebody want to have an understanding of what your business is.
Mhm.
I have found a couple times where people have a more traditional business and don't grasp quite what I may be doing, or they might write off nonprofits as something that, well, you can't make a business working with nonprofits. Well, that's not the case, and so they may not be the best folks for that.
Right.
How many hours do you work?
So that's a trick question. I
All
think
of them.
all of it. You're constantly working when you're a consultant and when you're on your own. But physically, I think I'm being much better now. I did not know how to strike that balance, that sometimes it was okay to take time off, go for a walk, because I do land up working in the nights, I do land up working in the mornings and different hours. So it took me a while to figure that out. I will say, depending on the client load, but for sure, I'll put in about 40 to 50 hours a week.
Mm. Yep.
And if I don't have client work, I'll probably be doing other work to like networking or reaching out to people, but I'm constantly doing something. What about you?
But I had a terrible role model in this. My father worked all the time. If it wasn't at the store, it was at home, it was weekends. It really, and my siblings and I, we talk about this, that, you know, how it's a benefit and a curse. And so, especially if you like what you're doing, right? And then it's like, oh, well, that's not really work. I'm enjoying this. Well, yeah, but you got to do something different. I think what's really been important is to understand, at least for me, what my work rhythm is, to know that I'm really productive at certain times of the day, at other times of the day I'm not, and how that kind of cycles in my life one way or another. So that has made a big difference to me in saying how many hours I work or not, and having that discipline to say, you know, actually for me, the discipline isn't when, you know, to work, it is when not to work. And that makes a big difference. So any books or resources you can recommend for people?
So for me, because I was in the nonprofit space, the resource, I mean, I did read a few books, Good to Great. They're all great to read. But a good resource in the nonprofit space for me has been Bridgespan.
Mm.
And they have a ton of information. And of course, now I feel Nonprofit.Courses is a good resource.
Of course, thank you.
Just looked at it and I've been, so I think that's me in the nonprofit space.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'll tell you, I find all sorts of things out there. We mentioned the E-Myth, Michael Gerber, Bruce Judson's Going Alone. I got a lot out of the book Drive by a guy named Daniel Pink, who actually puts out another book folks might be interested in. It's called To Sell is Human, which is how we sell all the time, whether we know it or not. It's kind of interesting. Alan Weiss, Alan Weiss, I think. I have a friend who really is an Alan Weiss guru, who puts out some interesting work on consulting, and she actually took his program specifically. I've read early on in my business, I read a book called Book Yourself Solid, and ended up being in the fellow's course, Michael Port. That was really great. Or Duct Tape Marketing is another one. There's a lot of resources out there for people. And I'll tell you, and like you, I mean, just to pass it back, I learned from other people's work, like how you market yourself in CGT, and how things I can learn from other folks that way. I think that makes a big difference. Yeah. So what are your questions? Open this up more broadly for between us or in the chat. Any other thoughts or questions out there? What else? What are people thinking? Here, we'll throw that up. Colleen, Rachel?
Yeah, Matt, actually, I have quite a few comments.
Okay.
So what you're talking about as far as a lot of the tips and tools that you've given us, I'm going to make a recommendation, and I'll drop it in the chat, to either read and or participate in, read Pat Romboletti's book. It's called Bulletproof Your Career, Secure Your Financial Future, and Do Fulfilling Work on Your Own Terms for Life. Long title. It's aimed at C-suite and getting a full-time job, but she also recognizes that some of these same techniques work for consultants and gig workers. In fact, her whole premise is that we are all gig workers, regardless of whether you're in a company or not.
Yep.
And so everything you've touched on, from networking, and she talks about creating curating and cultivating your network. So that continuous networking, no matter what you're doing. If we are consultants, we are absolutely gig workers. So we should always be looking for our next contract, et cetera. So I'm going to drop that in the chat. The other thing is, you talked about what you do, sort of professional development and keeping, and Pat talks about create your own professional development curriculum, program, whatever you want to call it. And that is even if you are in a W-2 position, because the what they offer you in that benefits them.
Right.
And if you are technically a gig worker, and we would be if we're consultants, then you got to create your own. And so absolutely, I'm just echoing and just loving all of what I'm hearing. The other thing too, to remember, and Pat talks about this, if you think because you're an introvert, you're terrible at networking.
Yeah.
What I have found, I'm very much an introvert, but what I have found is, so first of all, let me just say introvert and extrovert is about where you get your energy. So if you're really extroverted, you like people, you get your energy from, it's like how you recharge your battery.
Exactly.
So for introverts, networking, I found I love it, especially on Zoom, because as Rashmi talked about, I would never have met any of you. I would never have met the people that I know in LA and the Pennsylvania area and Florida and Chicago. I would never have met any of you if it weren't for Zoom. And I find I really love networking. The thing with extroverts is make sure you recharge in between. So don't book back to back. Don't, I have it. I pick a day, but you can do it any way you want to. And then I have 15 minutes at least in between each one. And I limit it to 3 hours a day or something at the most, because that helps me keep my energy up. And so those are all things that everything I'm hearing. Branding is about networking. There's a lot of networking. And so, and when you first talked about figure out what it is you do, Pat Romboletti also talks about, there's another woman that she did, but difference is better than being the same as everyone else. So pointing out what it is you do that's unique to you. I love all of this. And I just want to thank you for this. And I'll drop all the rambling that I've done in the chat. So thank you.
Well, they call it the unique selling proposition for a business. And that's what all of us need anyhow, whether we're officially in a business or not. And you really bring up some excellent points there. And I'll tell you, I know people complain about being on Zoom constantly, through the day, and it can really be wearing. But I, like you, have met so many people I never would have interacted with before. I think this has been huge. And here, Colleen, you learned what a hoagie was, right? And I learned about what was it, Wisconsin?
The pasty up in the UP.
Yeah, right. Right up in the UP, exactly. So
that's Upper Peninsula from those of you who aren't Michiganders.
Colleen and I had a fun exchange one time about different sandwich types. It was kind of neat. Rachel, anything you'd like to chime in on?
I'd just like to say thanks. This was terrific. I could relate to a lot of what Rashmi said, and going through that, some days I feel quite confident, and other days I feel like, what the hell am I doing? But I'm still going forward. I have a SCORE mentor that I've met with once so far, and I had, hired a life coach that I met through one of my networking groups here, Kimmy Carlos, Motivational Consulting, and worked with her for several months. And now I'm done working with her, and she's now become my client. I was her client, and now she's my client. I'm setting her up on QuickBooks, and I asked her about her own business coach, and recently connected with that business coach who, although she's no longer a SCORE mentor, has offered to also mentor me for free, which I just like to say is, this whole networking thing really does seem to work. People are they're excited when you're excited about what you're doing. And I just love it. And I find that for me, I'm an ambivert that leans toward introversion. So I too need a lot of downtime. I need those breaks in between the Zoom meetings, et cetera. So it's funny because people say, oh, you're so energetic. I said, that's because I take really good care of myself. And so you only see me during those moments when, my passion and my energy is there. But I just like to say that this has been so helpful, and just kind of hearing what you guys have gone through in the course of your starting and maintaining your own businesses is just very reassuring. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's certainly an adventure.
It is.
Rashmi, anything, response, thoughts?
No, I think this was a great opportunity. Thank you. I'm glad I met you, Matt, and now
Yes.
the larger team. And it's interesting that as I was talking this morning for the webinar, I learned so much more about my own self, which I had never really paid attention to. So it was a good opportunity for me as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny you bring that up, because I think there a lot of this is learning about yourself, and then taking best, I hate to say advantage of, but to use what you're good at so that you can help other folks, and apply that.